A mother has been looking for her son for 20 years. She has been to every police station that would see her, 19 divisions. Not one of them has a record of him. But her son didn't vanish in thin air. He was arrested in daylight, placed in handcuffs in front of witnesses by the police. His name is Kemar Walters. He was 20 years old, and the last time anyone saw him, he was being placed in an unmarked car on Washington Boulevard 2 days before Christmas, 2004. 20 years later, nobody has been convicted, and a mother still does not know what happened to her son. This is Unsolved 876. To understand what happened to Kemar Walters, you need to understand his world. Kemar had plans to operate his own mechanic shop one day, so he began to hone his skills at his father's auto body shop off Washington Boulevard. But for a car owner in Jamaica in 2004, owning a vehicle was both a blessing and a curse, because while it was essential for getting around, it also made you a target. A car was money. An island-wide car-stealing ring was wreaking havoc throughout Jamaica. Vehicles taken in one parish, moved, replated, sold on in another. It was organized, it was profitable, and it was believed to be a key supplier to a rapidly growing used auto parts sector. And some who were sworn to protect and serve were taking bribes to look the other way. Some, according to allegations that would later come before the courts, participated in the criminal acts themselves. The formation of the Organized Crime Investigation Division was the Jamaica Constabulary Force's response to the rapid rise in organized criminal activity in the 1990s. Its mandate was to break the back of the black market's auto parts supply chain. And yet, agents of the state would end up at the center of this case. On the 20th of November 2004, a blue Honda CR-V was reported stolen in Montego Bay, St. James. On the 23rd of December, that CR-V pulled up outside Kemar's workplace, driven by Oliver Duncan. Duncan was a regular customer. While he was there, he offered Kemar Walters a lift to a store at Washington Plaza. That's Kemar Walters' whole involvement. He got in the car. Around 1 o'clock that afternoon, an unmarked red Honda Civic pulled into Washington Plaza. Inside were 3 police officers, in plain clothes, all 3 attached to the Organized Crime Investigation Division. They stopped alongside the blue CR-V, and according to the account later given to the court by one of the 3 officers, they came out with their guns in their hands. They questioned Oliver Duncan. Duncan said the car was his. They weren't satisfied, so they handcuffed him. And they also handcuffed the 20-year-old sitting in the passenger seat. Both men were then placed in the back of the police car. Now, up to this point, everything you've just heard could describe a lawful arrest, a stolen vehicle, a questionable answer, 2 men in handcuffs, ugly maybe, but lawful. Here is where it stops being lawful. One of the officers said they should take the men to headquarters. That's the procedure. That's what a real arrest looks like. But another officer said no, not yet. He said the men might lead them to more stolen cars, and then he made a phone call. A short time later, a second unmarked car arrived, a white Toyota Corolla, 2 more officers inside, and Kemar Walters and Oliver Duncan were taken out of the police car and placed in that white Toyota Corolla. That is the last time either man was seen alive. The officer who wanted to take them to headquarters stayed behind at the plaza. He told the court years later that he was concerned. He was concerned, and he stayed at the plaza. What follows is not something I can show you. There are no bodies, there is no footage, there is no confession in a courtroom. What there is a record, a petition filed with the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights on behalf of Kemar Walters and his family. And in it, an account of what is alleged to have happened after that white Corolla drove out of Washington Plaza. It is alleged that Kemar Walters was taken to a police station in St. Catherine, that he was beaten there, and that a relative was telephoned and could hear him in the background, begging. They were holding him for ransom. They believed his family could give them something. Whether that belief was right, whether it was fair, whether Kemar knew anything at all about any of it, the record does not establish. What the record establishes is that they called his family and made them listen to him. It is alleged that Oliver Duncan was shot in the leg at that same station, that Duncan was later taken to Green Bay in St. Catherine and tortured, handcuffed to a rail, until he gave up the location of the cars and the money, and that he was then killed. It is alleged that Kemar Walters was taken to swampland near the Jam World complex and shot, and that his body was buried somewhere on Constitution Hill in St. Andrew. Somewhere on Constitution Hill. That is as precise as this record gets. That is the closest a mother has ever come to knowing where her son is. There was one more thing to do. The blue CRV, the car that started all of this, was driven to a wooded area near the Port Royal main road. Debris was thrown on it, then gasoline, and it was set ablaze. On Christmas Day, 2004, the burnt-out shell of that vehicle was found. 2 men, gone, and the only physical thing tying them to those officers, burned. Now the cover-up. It is January 2005. A mother is moving from station to station, searching, still hoping to find her son. And at the same time, according to the petition later filed on behalf of Kemar Walters' family, a senior officer was dictating statements to the men involved in the Washington Plaza arrest. Those statements placed them miles away, apprehending a man in a stolen Toyota Tundra. And it is alleged that an entry in the station diary was falsified to support that claim, placing them downtown at the very hour Walters and Duncans were being arrested. The same senior officer is said to have collected the SIM cards from his officers' phones. Investigators were lurking, getting close. A cell site analysis could tell much. It is alleged he promised to take care of the witnesses, that he would marshal the identification parade himself. That officer was an assistant superintendent attached to the Organized Crime Investigation Division, a premier anti-crime unit covering up a crime. And for a while, it seemed to have worked. One officer was picked out at an identification parade, charged with assault and false imprisonment. But he was out on bail in 2 weeks. 2 others were taken in, but released. Nobody picked them out. The officer charged with assault and false imprisonment was placed before the courts in 2007. He was freed. The prosecution could not find 2 key witnesses. Then, for 3 years, nothing. 2 men arrested, not seen since. 5 officers under investigation, now free. Until 2008. The Gleaner ran a series on the auto theft ring. Undercover, months of work, and it laid out how the ring worked and the players involved. A major development. The case reopened, and help was sought from Scotland Yard. A $1 million reward was offered for information, while 2 retired English detectives were flown in to lead the investigation. Subsequently, 7 officers were implicated. One of them, a former corporal, was rearrested. He turned against his colleagues, gave statements that strengthened the prosecution's case, and went into witness protection. In June 2009, 2 constables were arrested and charged with the murder of Kemar Walters and Oliver Duncan. The assistant superintendent, with accessory after the fact. A 4th officer was believed to have fled. He has never been charged. Everything that is supposed to happen, happened. The trial began in October 2012, nearly 8 years after the 2 men disappeared. The Crown's case rested on the ex-cop's testimony. The defense charged that he was the mastermind, the killer, that he was framing his colleagues to save himself. On the 9th of January 2013, after 5 hours of deliberation, the jury came back. The assistant superintendent, the one accused of dictating the statements, was acquitted. But the jury could not agree on the 2 constables charged with murder. For one, 7 jurors said not guilty, 4 said guilty, 1 abstained. while for the other, 9 jurors said guilty, 3 said not guilty, 9 out of 12. And under the Jury Act as it stood at the time, a non-capital murder verdict did not have to be unanimous. Since a 2010 amendment, a majority of 9 was sufficient. 9 out of 12 was a conviction. But the judge did not accept the verdict. They were sent back to deliberate. But the verdict remained the same. A retrial was ordered. It never happened. According to the Director of Public Prosecutions, the witnesses were now living overseas, and it would cost the state too much to bring them back to Jamaica. An appeal was made for the law to be amended so that witnesses could give evidence by video link. That law has since been amended. But the retrial still has not happened, and in the years since, according to the Jamaica Constabulary Force's own published force orders, one of the officers implicated in this matter was promoted. Yes, you heard me correctly. Promoted. Before the arrests, before the English detectives, before the trial and the jury and the judge, before any of it, there was just a woman with a missing son and nobody who would tell her anything. Think about what that meant. A mother whose son had been taken away in handcuffs by the police, walking into a police station and filing a missing persons report with the police. In 2014, the family of Kemar Walters did something that Jamaican families almost never do. They took the country to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, a petition against the state of Jamaica. In December 2020, the commission ruled it admissible that there was a real case to answer, that Jamaica may have failed in its duty to investigate, to prosecute, and to punish. 16 years after her son was taken, a mother had to go to an international body in Washington to get answers from her own country. The anguish of being at a crossroad, unable to grieve her child, afraid to hope, but desperate for closure. It took the Director of Public Prosecutions 5 years to bring charges against the police officers, 4 more years to reach trial. 9 out of 12 jurors voted to convict. A retrial deemed too costly. 13 years since that decision. Nothing. 13 long years, leaving a family gripped by grief, from a criminal act buried by silence. But his loved ones have not forgotten, and neither should we. This is Unsolved 876.